Welcome to today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And before we go any further, the Raw Takes and You giveaway is actually going to be delayed 1 week, but we will have some fabulous prizes for our viewers to learn. Make sure to wait that 1 week to hear the announcement on that. But also, today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty brought to you by Window Depot and Bath Depot. Visit their showroom in Westlake and discover the Depot difference. It is the highest rated remodeling company in Cleveland. Got to check out Window and Bath Depot if you're locally here in the Cleveland area. I actually work for the company as well. All right, welcome to today's edition of Raw Takes. If you also enjoy the show, check me out on social media. You can see some of the other work I do outside of just this podcast on social media. Check me out on Instagram at Hoty Raw Takes, and you can check me out on Facebook at Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty, or on X, you can find me at Hoty Andrew. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. We got a lot of sports to get to, so let's just get right into it. Let's start off with those AFC and NFC championship games. The Kansas City Chiefs over the Buffalo Bills 32-29. This was the more intriguing game of the two to me, obviously because Philly pretty much blew out Washington and it was over by the fourth quarter, but Washington put up one heck of a fight. But having said that, let's just get things going with the second of the two, because there's just a lot to say here. Patrick Mahomes obviously had a sensational game. I don't think the Chiefs' offense was overly fantastic. I'll say that. I think they just did what they had to do to win this game and get back to a situation where they have an opportunity to be the first NFL team to three-peat. So will they be able to do that? I highly suspect they will. Some of the officiating in this game wasn't great. It really wasn't. I think there was a call that should have happened late in the game on Josh Allen. I think on that fourth, and I believe it was 4th and 10 when he threw that pass, or 4th and 5. I think it was a little shorter than 4th and 10. But he threw that pass. Obviously, it wasn't caught, but I think there was a roughing the passer that was missed by the officiating. But honestly, even like with the Houston game, I think it was less of a factor in this game. But having said that, I also think when you think of the Buffalo Bills and how they played, they had an opportunity to win the game and they didn't get it done. So that falls more so on the Buffalo Bills than the Kansas City Chiefs. Having said that, though, the officiating still wasn't perfect in this game. You look at what Josh Allen was able to do. I still thought he was sensational in the game overall. It was just another game where the Buffalo Bills had a shortcoming. And now they're 0-4 against the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes than they were in the Super Bowl appearances they had in the 90s with Jim Kelly. I mean, they were 0-4 in those too. So the Buffalo Bills know how to lose 4 big games in a row. Very common in their franchise history. But the Buffalo Bills, they still have Josh Allen. They have a lot of their roster coming back. I still think Sean McDermott is an underappreciated head coach in the NFL. I just think the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason have been their kryptonite, and they haven't been able to overcome it. I think it'll be possible at some point they will break through and get to the Super Bowl, though. I don't think we're going to see this Kansas City reign of terror. I mean, I think we'll see them win more Super Bowls, but I don't think we're going to see the reign of terror that they have right now continue to happen. I don't think the Chiefs are just going to win every Super Bowl from here on out. I think eventually the Buffalo Bills are going to break through. But you know what? That still remains yet to be seen. We'll have to see what takes place there, because Cincinnati, the Bengals, I think they're going to get better. And we know that they've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in an AFC championship appearance. So I have faith that the Bengals could do it again. The Baltimore Ravens, I mean, they're kind of in the Buffalo Bills' shoes where they've always struggled against the Kansas City Chiefs. But could they break through and possibly get to the Super Bowl? I think that's a possibility as well. The Houston Texans, I know they kind of were robbed in some situations against Kansas City the last 2 years, at least this past year. I don't think they played KC last year. So, yeah, the Houston Texans could break through with C.J. Stroud, I think, at some point. And then I look at some of the other teams. The Chargers are within their division. Are they going to ever break through? I don't know. I still think Jim Harbaugh is the right man for the job that could possibly help Justin Herbert break through and win a division. But that's going to be really tough when you have to play Mahomes twice a year. I say the same thing for the Raiders and the Broncos. I mean, well, the Raiders and Broncos, I don't think they have the elite quarterback of Justin Herbert caliber quarterback yet. Bo Nix very well may be on his way to that, but I don't think that's the case right now. And I don't think Bo Nix will end up being as good as Justin Herbert, but it's a possibility. Yeah, and that's about it. I mean, I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers or Cleveland Browns anytime soon being able to break through. I think they're in kind of a worse part of the AFC right now, where we have a lot of question marks about both those teams. I think the same thing about the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. We don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back next year with Aaron Glenn as the head coach. Obviously, the New England Patriots, even though I think they made a great hire with Mike Vrabel, is that going to be what helps the Patriots cross over the top? I don't think so. So there is and then the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, will get back to rebounding and being competitive again. I still think Trevor Lawrence had a relatively okay year, better than people thought. I know people are starting to give up on Trevor Lawrence. I'm not. I think Trevor Lawrence can bounce back and be really good. I think coaching is why the Jacksonville Jaguars had some major struggles. But having said that, it's a possibility for them to come back into this thing too. But right now, Kansas City runs the roost. And the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl does feel like it was a breath of fresh air in hindsight, because we get Kansas City and Philly twice of the last 3 years, and then we had Kansas City and San Francisco. San Francisco was at least a likable team. Philadelphia, I still like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I just don't like Eagle fans. I think Eagle fans are kind of just as bad as Cowboy fans, to be quite honest with you. They're not really much difference I see between the Eagles fans and the Cowboys fans, but having said that, I'd rather the Philadelphia Eagles win this Super Bowl than the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I'm sick of the Chiefs. I just really am. I think a lot of people are. But the thing is there too, I'm not someone who would ever encourage anyone to not watch a Super Bowl. But if you're mad the Kansas City Chiefs have made the Super Bowl, why watch the Super Bowl? That sends a message to the NFL. You're sick of the Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe the officiating will lighten up a little bit. And I'm not accusing the NFL of rigging games. I'm not stating that the officials are rigging games, but maybe the officials, if they are doing kind of these weird calls in these games that help Kansas City, if there was a statement to be made, it's to not watch the Super Bowl with Kansas City in it. And I don't think that's going to be the case. And I'm not encouraging that either. I want to emphasize that. People should watch as many sporting events as possible. I'm in the sports media industry. So, I am all for watching sports, but that could send a message maybe to the NFL if you're sick of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not encouraging that in terms of sports, because I think sports bring people together. I love the drama about sports. What I love about sports always is not just the drama, it's just the coming together. Especially over the last few years with a lot of the divisions we have, sports always usually brings people together. The common foe is the opponent on the field. So that's just the way I view sports. And that's for all markets. All markets. Obviously, you have rivalries and people get into arguments and debates about sports, and that's fine. But I think as Americans, we all come together around sports, and that's what's so great about sports, is the ability to come together and the ability to root for either the good guy or the bad guy, and the ability to have disagreements on certain players or certain coaches or certain schemes. That's what makes sports great. And I'll just throw that right off the rip right there. So, of course, I'm going to encourage you to watch the Super Bowl. But having said that, sending a message to the NFL that you're sick of the Kansas City Chiefs would be to not watch the Super Bowl. But the drama in this game, I still think, is going to be incredible. And what I mean by the drama, I mean Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts going back and forth. I think that's a possibility in this game once again. 38-35 back 2 years ago was the final score. Andy Reid, which I still think is a great story. Andy Reid became the first head coach to beat the team in the Super Bowl that fired him. That's a great storyline to me. It really is. And he has an opportunity to do the same thing here. I still am rooting for Philly just because I'm sick of Mahomes. I'm sick of Kelsey. I think the Taylor Swift stuff, even though I don't really look into that too much, I still think that's kind of like an outside factor and another reason to not like the Chiefs, because it brings that celebrity status quo to Kansas City. And the NFL may like that. I'm not going to argue that. The NFL probably does like having a superstar power in Taylor Swift at games. It brings in more money. It brings more eyes to the game. Is that necessarily going to be the reason people should watch football? I personally don't think so. Which is personally why I'm rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game. The Philadelphia Eagles, to me, too, I'll say this. Nick Sirianni has gotten in some hot water over the last few years. And people have talked about how he should be fired from the Eagles and how the Eagles, they underperformed. I mean, please. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They lost a playoff game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. And now they're back in the Super Bowl. And Nick Sirianni is way over 500 as a head coach. And he's taken you to 2 Super Bowls. He may have not won both of them. He may not win this one either, but I still think Nick Sirianni is not the problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. Having said that, though, I think the Eagles getting back to the Super Bowl should take the heat off of Nick Sirianni, because last year people wanted him out. And I thought that was ridiculous. I don't think Nick Sirianni is the problem with Philadelphia at all. If anything, I think he's proven he's a really darn good head coach. I think he's one of the best head coaches in the National Football League. So I give props to Nick Sirianni right now. Good for him getting the Philadelphia Eagles back to the Super Bowl. You look at Saquon Barkley, he's been a one-man show in terms of the running game. Jalen Hurts obviously can contribute to that running game too, but Saquon Barkley is Hollywood. He really, really is. He's that good. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs defense hasn't faced anybody like him. Guys like Jones and Karlaftis on the edge. Are they going to be able to get to Hurts before Barkley runs off and goes to an end zone play? Are they going to be able to do that? They're going to put the pressure on Hurts to have to hand off that ball or pass it downfield. I don't know. A.J. Brown is still a really good wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. I still think he's going to find his way to the end zone. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a rushing touchdown in this game. There's so much I like about the Philadelphia Eagles to make Kansas City's life a lot more difficult in this football game. And I think they will. I think we're going to see lead changes. I think we're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles really just pounce on this one. I really do. I think they're going to be very, very aggressive. And we've seen Nick Sirianni be very aggressive as a head coach. But we all know what's on the other side of that football. I think Philadelphia, for as difficult as they'll make this game for Kansas City, we know what the Chiefs can overcome. We saw Buffalo make Kansas City's life difficult this past Sunday, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. The Commanders, they made Detroit's life hell, that's for sure, but they didn't make Philadelphia's. The Eagles pounced them hard, and I don't think there's much to say about that game. Outside, Jaden Daniels had an incredible season. The Washington Commanders' future is very, very bright. And I think we're going to see the Commanders become a really big factor within the NFC East. Jaden Daniels by far probably had the best rookie quarterback season any of us have ever seen. And I think he's going to put the Commanders in a position to win titles for the next 10 years. So I think that's a good win by the Washington Commanders. But the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely trounced them. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles solidified their spot as the top NFC team. I mean, they were really close to it all season long. The Detroit Lions were the only team we really thought were going to be capable of being a threat to them, but we just learned that the Lions' defense couldn't hold on, and now Philadelphia is in this situation to possibly win a Super Bowl over the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm not going to hide my bias. I want Philadelphia to win the Super Bowl. I would like to see their second Super Bowl championship. I'm not a fan of Eagle fans, but would you rather root for the Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs? And not just the glamour that franchise has brought in, but a lot of the drama and a lot of the superstar power that so many of us have come to not like and get sick of in terms of Patrick Mahomes, in terms of Travis Kelce. I know they have DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt. I love Kareem Hunt still because he's a former Cleveland Brown, a local guy. I still love Kareem Hunt. But, having said that, though, I'm not rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes is so unlikable. Travis Kelce, to me, is unlikable. It's not like the Patriots. Like, Gronkowski was likable. Tom Brady was likable. The reason I got frustrated with the Patriots is because they won. I don't like Mahomes and Travis Kelce. It's hard to root for them. It just is. And the baggage of Taylor Swift and all this outside drama that surrounds the Kansas City Chiefs and Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes and all that crap, I'm sick of it. And so I just want to see the Philadelphia Eagles put the Chiefs back in their place. But I doubt that's going to happen. I see the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game. I think it's going to be a shootout for the most part, and I'm going to take the Chiefs 31-28. I'm going to make my prediction early. 31-28 Kansas City comes down to a field goal, but we see Philadelphia's offense stay electric throughout and make the Kansas City defense a living nightmare to some degree. I think Saquon Barkley has that capability. The running game's going to get going, and I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs have seen a run game like Saquon Barkley all season long, so I think that's going to make it difficult. Having said that, that's my thoughts on the AFC and NFC championships in this upcoming Super Bowl. Let's get into some of the other big stories in the NFL, and that's coaching hires. I think when you look at some of these coaching hires, I think they could be really good, could be really bad. I will start off with Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears. I like Ben Johnson overall. I think he was a really good coordinator. And, contrary to popular belief, I think a lot of people in Detroit are blaming Ben Johnson for their loss to the Washington Commanders in the postseason. And I'm not going to actually put that on Ben Johnson. I think it was more so on Aaron Glenn and the defense. But, and injuries piling up, I think that's what cost Detroit their season. But having said that, Ben Johnson, I think, is a really good hire by the Chicago Bears. Now, I've been very adamant that I'm not a big believer in Caleb Williams. I'm still not. But I think this is a breath of fresh air compared to Matt Eberflus. Ben Johnson clearly must see something in Caleb Williams that a lot of us may not see. I know a lot of people that don't like Caleb Williams. I know a lot of people that do like Caleb Williams. I'm on the side of that Caleb Williams was the wrong pick by the Chicago Bears, and in hindsight, they should have taken Jaden Daniels. They didn't. And I don't think enough people are talking about that because they believe in Caleb Williams. I still don't. But Ben Johnson may be able to get more out of Caleb Williams than Matt Eberflus was able to do so. So I think that might be a really good hire by the Bears, an offensive-minded guy, a guy who's kind of been a mad scientist in terms of coming up with trick plays. And the other thing, too, he's familiar with the NFC North. He knows how Detroit's system works. He's familiar with Green Bay. He's familiar with Minnesota. He knows the NFC North. So, having said that, that makes it possibly a really good hire. We don't really know what's a good hire and what's a bad hire until the NFL season in 2025 begins. We just don't know. We may not know until 2026 even, when we see teams start to rebuild or start to just make a new approach, take that new approach, for example. I mean, we don't know until, I say, a year or 2 years into the job what hires were good, what ones were bad. If Ben Johnson turns around and takes Caleb Williams to a 10-7 season and the Bears are in the playoffs next year, then he obviously was a great hire. But if the Chicago Bears are 8-9, they're on the cusp, we still don't know. It obviously means the Bears are a little bit better than they were. But, I mean, take this for granted. The Bears were 7-10 last year, ascending with Justin Fields, and then they wanted to get rid of that for Caleb Williams. And then they lost 2 additional more games this year and went 5-12. They got worse. So even with drafting a new quarterback, which I still don't think they should have done it. If they did, they should have taken Jaden Daniels. And no one's talking about that. But clearly, Ben Johnson sees something in Caleb Williams that I don't see. And maybe he'll be able to get the best out of him. And already having familiarity with the NFC North, that could be a really good hire. So I think it's going to be a good hire for the Chicago Bears, but I don't think we're going to know if it is for another 2 years. So that's my thoughts on that hire. Aaron Glenn with the New York Jets, I already watched his presser, and I loved a lot of what he had to say. He brought some Dan Campbell traits to the table in his press conference. And, you know, what I liked about Ben Johnson a little bit is he didn't seem like he was trying to come off as the next Dan Campbell. Aaron Glenn kind of seemed like he was. But, you know, Aaron Glenn, at the same time, I still think brings a lot to the table. I think he is a really good defensive coordinator. I kind of argue he might have checked out in that playoff game. I don't think Ben Johnson did, but I think Aaron Glenn might have. And I still am on the side of we shouldn't have offensive and defensive coordinators interviewing with other teams in the middle of a playoff run. I think the NFL should do something about that. That's still my opinion, but we'll see what that translates into later on. I still think Aaron Glenn overall could be a really good hire by the New York Jets. I like his aggressive nature to a degree when he just came on stage and said, we're the New York Jets. I loved that. That's great energy and did remind me of Dan Campbell. But the thing I also get concerned about is that, are you trying to be Dan Campbell in that situation? Is Aaron Glenn going to try to be Dan Campbell? Because if you're going to try to be Dan Campbell, you're going to fail. It's like all the guys that tried to be Belichick after being under Belichick. Can you name me one Bill Belichick coach under a coaching tree that succeeded? And people in Detroit would say, oh, well, Matt Patricia was not a good thing at all for us. And people in Cleveland would say Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, both were disasters here. So, you know, Bill Belichick doesn't have anybody in that coaching tree. Dan Campbell, I think, is a little bit different than a Bill Belichick, obviously. But if you're going to be Dan Campbell elsewhere, it's not going to work. So that kind of concerns me with Aaron Glenn. But having said that, I do like his passion. I do like how he said, we're the New York Jets. We're the New York Jets. I love that. Great energy. But we got to see it take place on the field now. Now that he's the New York Jets head coach. Then the other hire was Liam Cohen to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this could be a really good hire as well. Trevor Lawrence needs another offensive-minded guy, I think, to kind of get back on track. I still think Trevor Lawrence wasn't the problem with the Jaguars last season. I still think they have some nice pieces like Travis Etienne running the football. I still think when you look at Josh Allen as a linebacker, he's really good. I think the Jaguars are in much better position to be successful in 2025 than they were in 2024. So we'll see what takes place with that hire. I do like Liam Cohen, though. He did some great work with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Baker Mayfield, I think he's about to be on his 8th or 9th offensive coordinator in his career. So props to him that he's been able to find success with all the revolving doors that have taken place, not just in Cleveland, but now in Tampa Bay, because we saw that Dave Canales went to Carolina last year, and he had a tendency to work with undersized quarterbacks. And that's the thing with Trevor Lawrence. He's not undersized like Baker Mayfield. So I think Liam Cohen getting the Jacksonville job will be interesting, and I'm excited to see how that pans out because I haven't given up on Trevor Lawrence like a lot of others. So that's my thoughts there. A lot of talk going on about the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they hired Tommy Rees as the new OC. They're looking at possibly getting a new quarterback. There were some reports out there that Shedeur Sanders talked with the Browns. And as I said on this podcast, I am not a fan of Shedeur Sanders. I think the Colorado program, while I'm proud of where they've gotten to, I still think they haven't played anybody in college football that's nearly as good as programs like Ohio State or Indiana even. Like Colorado had a cupcake schedule, so I don't believe that the Colorado players that are entering this draft are going to be nearly as good in the NFL as others may think. But having said that, that doesn't mean that, they aren't big names and shouldn't be evaluated and shouldn't get drafted at certain spots. I get that. But I still think Colorado as a program is a little overrated because it's great to have a big name like Deion Sanders as your head coach, but these names like Shedeur Sanders, these names like Travis Hunter, even though Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders were both phenomenal this year, the Colorado Buffaloes, who did they play? I really think that. Why were they ranked when they played nobody? And I'm going to keep throwing that out there. The talk is, too, Deion Sanders may want to pull the Mannings and not have Shedeur Sanders come to Cleveland, and that's a possibility. That's part of why I'm against Shedeur Sanders. I like Cam Ward better in this draft anyway. I think Cam Ward has a higher ceiling. I don't like really much of the QBs outside of Cam Ward, and honestly, maybe Will Howard. If I'm the Browns, I'm thinking maybe in the second or third round taking Will Howard. I'll just throw that out there because I think at least it's a ticket seller for next year. You can't put Deshaun back on the field. It doesn't even look like it's going to be healthy enough to do so. But we'll talk about more of draft stock and which players to take on later editions of Raw Takes. Right now, if the Browns are going to get a quarterback and if Tennessee is going to do what they say, they're going to take the best available generational talent, then I'm not necessarily against the Cleveland Browns going after a Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders, yes. I think it's just too much baggage. Deion Sanders, as great as I think Deion Sanders is, I don't necessarily want to have the whole, my son shouldn't play for Cleveland thing if that does end up transpiring. I think it's too much of a limelight on a franchise that doesn't really need limelight right now. They had a really, really bad year, and they need to be scrutinized for it, and they need to find a quarterback that can come in and just get the job done. You have enough talent on this roster. They need a season where it's an off season that's really, really quiet, where they don't make a lot of noise. And I think when you look at the draft, they have the ability to take a player that can make a lot of noise, but who's it going to be? Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? I think that's the wrong guy, 100%. If it's Cam Ward, I think that's a guy that comes in here and figures out his style of play. And also the question is going to be, is Stefanski going to go and get the guy he wants? Because that's going to be the big thing with the Cleveland Browns. Is this going to be a true Stefanski-run offense? He already said he's going to call plays. And that's the other thing I want to mention when it comes to Stefanski. Who cares about if he's calling plays or not? And he had a pretty harsh answer when it came to the Tommy Rees press conference about why he's going to call plays. I don't blame him. Why does everybody in Cleveland media think that, or not just Cleveland media, but Cleveland fans, the play calling, it's such a story here. Kevin Stefanski is a very good play caller. I think it's ridiculous. And so the pressure from some of the outside media and some of the fans that Kevin Stefanski shouldn't call plays, yada, 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 I think is ridiculous. Let Kevin Stefanski call plays. He's done a good job of it before. I think if you're possibly going down on a sinking ship, seeing where the Browns are right now, you got to go out with what you know best. And I think what Kevin Stefanski knows best is play calling. So who cares if he's the play caller or not? That's where I stand on that. And I don't blame Kevin Stefanski's answer during the Tommy Rees offensive coordinator opening in terms of the press conference at all. I don't blame his answer one bit. I think it was the right answer to give out. Because who cares? He should be the play caller. He's done a terrific job before. And he put it on Ken Dorsey, and Ken Dorsey failed. That's why he's not with the Browns anymore. So that's my thoughts on that. With the draft, whose stock is higher? We'll get into more of that as April approaches. But there's a lot of stories around that with the Browns right now. And I still think that's all gobbledygook until we see what actually transpires once the draft gets closer, what we see from Deion Sanders, what we see from some of these Colorado players like Travis Hunter, what we see from guys like Cam Ward and where their draft stock is. If Tennessee's going to go after a quarterback, who knows? We'll have to see. All right, to wrap up the show, let's talk about some NBA. The Cleveland Cavaliers with a little bit of a rough stretch. 2 losses to Houston, a loss to Philadelphia, but they made up with it with a win over Detroit. I was at the Houston game the other day here in Cleveland, and the Cavs kind of came back and made it a really intriguing game. The Rockets were just dismantling them, but it wasn't enough. The Rockets still took care of business. They won at 135-131. It was a good game overall, but the Rockets are definitely a team I think a lot of people are sleeping on right now. Jalen Green's pretty sensational. Fred VanVleet is a nice piece to have. You look at guys like Steven Adams, a veteran, and Ime Udoka is a really good head coach. He's definitely a Coach of the Year candidate along with Kenny Atkinson. So the Houston Rockets sweeping the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think that's a pretty big story right now. I think the Rockets need to be talked about a little bit more in terms of the media hype that they're not getting right now. The Cavs are getting it. I think Houston should get a little bit more of it too. But, obviously I'm rooting for the Cavs, so it was a bummer that they ended up losing that game. But I'll tell you what, they did put up one heck of a fight at the end, and it was a good effort by the Cleveland Cavaliers, just couldn't get the job done. They made up for it, though, with a nice win over the Detroit Pistons. Only 3 losses at home, and they're 37-9. And it's the one of the best records in the NBA. Got to give the Cavs props there. But speaking of more teams going on in the NBA right now, you look at the Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat situation. That's just getting uglier and uglier. Where's Jimmy Butler going to land? I heard reports and rumors, and I don't want to necessarily confirm it, but he doesn't want to go to Memphis. He'll go anywhere else but the Grizzlies. No idea why. This situation's clearly gotten uglier and uglier, and I think it's best for both parties to separate. I think the Miami Heat still have a phenomenal culture and know what the heck they're doing. So I think the Miami Heat deserve a benefit of the doubt here that they're going to probably move Jimmy Butler to a team that they don't view as a threat to them. The Memphis Grizzlies, I don't think are a threat to them. Maybe that's why Jimmy Butler's like, don't trade me there. I don't know. I have no idea. It's a really weird situation. I actually didn't think things would go south with Butler and the Heat at all. But they have, and he's been suspended numerous games now. And the Miami Heat, they're still bubbling around 500 fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, they're still an okay basketball team without Jimmy Butler. So maybe moving off Jimmy Butler, just get the noise out of the room will help the Miami Heat in the long run. We'll see. But I'm still going to be intrigued to see where Jimmy Butler ends up playing in the NBA. I think there's some teams out there he could be a really nice addition for. One of them, believe it or not, is the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't know if the Lakers are going to have enough to do it, but if Jimmy Butler was with the Lakers, I think that puts them over the hump a little bit more than they are right now. The Denver Nuggets, if you went there, wouldn't that be something? I don't know if the Denver Nuggets would have enough to give up. Oklahoma City, would that be a good spot for him? I don't know. I think Oklahoma City shouldn't mess with what they're doing right now. The Memphis Grizzlies would be a good fit, but he clearly doesn't want to go there. So, and maybe the Houston Rockets even. The Houston Rockets could use a bona fide superstar veteran. Jalen Green's pretty good, but they have other options that they need. They need more veterans, I think, if you're the Houston Rockets. Maybe send Jimmy Butler to the Houston Rockets. I'm not sure Ime Udoka wants that, but I mean that's not necessarily a bad option either. I don't think. I don't think the Celtics are a place he's going. I don't think the Celtics are going to make any moves, to be honest with you. Maybe some for the bench, but Milwaukee, no, I don't see that. Orlando, maybe. State of Florida still. I don't know where a good landing spot for Jimmy Butler would be. I like the Houston Rockets for him, to be honest with you, but we'll see if the Rockets even want to do that or if even Miami's considering a trade to Houston. That's today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned next week for the Raw Takes and You giveaway announcement. And, of course, like, comment, subscribe. Check out more of Raw Takes content as well. And check the show out on social media. Those links are right below this video. Have a wonderful day, everybody.